Tuesday nights, you've got Sunday night football, you've got Monday night football, and then you got Tuesday night. Well, guess what? You got Tuesday night football right now. It's unlike any other show you will hear anywhere in the United States of America or other points of interest. Because it's Phil Chaplin live with me, Arnie Jones, and now it's football time, Chappie and Arnie style. Good evening, Phil Chaplin.
Yeah, buddy. I'm excited, man. This is good stuff.
Can you tell I'm excited? Can you tell I'm excited?
I am as well. We got a lot of news, right?
Well, before we get into breakouts coming up this week or injuries that may have just killed certain fantasy owners, and you know who I'm talking about. Me.
No comment.
No comment. And I get this trade offer from Phil Chaplin. He's offered me. I'll get into it in a few. Let's just save that conversation. But before we get into the trades or the players, a big event happened this week, Phil Chaplin. The legend, and Chappie and Andrea get together for a threesome never seen before. So tell me about it. How was dinner with the legend and Andrea? Let's talk about it.
I'll tell you. So the first thing I'll tell you, it went by too fast. As you can imagine, when you talk with or meet with someone that you haven't met in the past, that you spent so much time around, it just really goes by fast. But it was cool to see them. We had a great time at Twin Peaks here in Indianapolis on 82nd Street. And like I said, it's always a pleasure meeting a guy of that stature and a lady of that stature. And, I look forward to the next time it happens. So, it's really cool what they do, going around the country, meeting people. I think that really speaks to where their mind is with this, right?
Yeah, and the thing, Chappie, is we do this fantasy network, and I've had people ask me this. This is no joke. Somebody asked me the other day that listens to our show, they said, how long have you and Phil Chaplin known each other? Because, obviously you've known each other a long time. And I'm like, you won't even believe it if I tell you, But the thing is, Lenny and Andrea, they really take our network to heart, and they really try to reach out to all of us. And the rumor is, Chappie, they're coming to Carolina.
Yeah, they echoed that statement last night when I was talking to them. They said they were going to come out and visit you on the back end of the trip. So
I guess they're either saving that's sort of a bad denouement to the end of the book. It's sort of like anticlimactic. He goes with you to 82nd Street and has a great time, and then he comes to Carolina and hangs out with me. Are you kidding? I mean, boring. It'll be all right. No, we'll have a great time.
I'll tell you, I do want to tell you two things before we move on, right? So the first thing is we're all sitting there. We're having a good time. Twin Peaks is less than a mile from my house. I'm sitting there. I'm enjoying my cold beverage, as you know I like to do. And I think it was the second or third one. He looks at me and he's like, Phil, are you all right? Are you okay to drive? I just had to chuckle.
Yeah. Well,
but here's the thing. Okay, so my point to that is the thing about Lenny and Andrea that struck me from the beginning, and it resonated again last night. One word: genuine.
No doubt. And let me say,
I can't think of a higher compliment than that. Can you?
No, and everyone, I guess, on the network knows that earlier in August, I lost my son, and everyone is very well aware. Earlier this year, I had some very touch and go heart surgery. I can tell you, I mean, I've gotten messages. They would never either one say this on the air, so I'll say it for them. The messages that I have received from Lenny Melnick and Andrea Lamont about my personal life and the things I've been going through, if they won't make you cry, you don't have a heart.
Yeah.
That's the kind of people we're talking about, and I know we get on podcasts and we're getting ready to do it here. We get excited and we get down and dirty with football or baseball, but the great thing about fantasy sports on this network, and Lenny has said it, and he's only said it, he lives it. It's like family. And it's just, it's a great thing. But before I start crying, we're going to shift this real quick to some football. So, can I do this, Phil Chaplin, just because I know we have so much to talk about. We're going to be with you for a little while tonight, so strap them on. I want to say hello to Doug Boyle in the chat room, and I'm hoping the chat room crowd grows as we do. Here we go. I got a fantasy team. I'm in a league with Phil Chaplin, and here are it's a 2-quarterback league, guys, and here are my I got 4 quarterbacks. I got 4. Okay, you ready? So I draft Jared Goff. Pretty good, right? Everybody likes that pick? Jared Goff, right? Okay. All right, it goes downhill really fast. All right, I got Jared Goff. And remember, every quarterback gets a bye week. So Jared Goff has a bye week sometime this year. I got 3 more quarterbacks I drafted. I drafted Ben Roethlisberger. We'll talk about that. Phil, I'm going to let you have that one in a minute. But as we know, Big Ben has been, and he's out for the year, and he's killing me in my fantasy league. I lost by 1 stinking point this week because Ben Roethlisberger played and got me 3 measly points. But now I'm not done with my quarterback situation. Not only did I draft Roethlisberger, I drafted the player. I talked him up. I said, who was the hottest quarterback the last 4 weeks of the regular season last year? And it was Sam Darnold for the Jets. And then he goes out and enters kissing contests and picks up mono. And of course, I can't make it up. And for my 4th quarterback, I decided I would just go out and take somebody, who isn't going to play right away. Well, let me tell you, he ain't going to play at all. I picked up Haskins for Washington. So what I'm telling you guys, I got 4 quarterbacks and only 1 can play. On week 2, Chaplin, he comes to my rescue. He offers me a trade. Yes, he offers me a trade with editorial to boot. He says, hey, Arn, your team sucks, man. I'm gonna make you an offer. I'm gonna make you an offer you can't refuse. He offers me, I'll give up. Are you ready? I'll give up Mike Williams. I'll give up Ezekiel Elliott. I will get Mike Evans, the wide receiver, Fantastic Mundo from Tampa Bay, and I'll get the North Carolina State former alum who transferred to Wisconsin, Russell Wilson. That's the trade offer. Not been taken yet, not been rejected yet, but at least if I had Russell Wilson, I'd have a quarterback that can play. But I guarantee you this, Chaplain, you wait, if I took this offer, you know who'd get hurt next week, don't you?
Well, a lot of this is about luck, right?
Because it's all luck.
I think that everybody drafted depth. My whole thing, I drafted 5 quarterbacks. So I'm sitting on Wilson. I'm sitting on Kyler Murray, who I love. I'm sitting on Josh Allen. 4 quarterbacks. And I'm sitting on Daniel Jones. So Daniel Jones is getting ready to start this week. All of a sudden I have a surplus in a 2-quarterback league. And
so you deal from strength.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantasy football 101, right?
Right.
And it doesn't hurt that my buddy needs help.
And you're such you're such a nice guy. Just saying, I'll give you this quarterback with me having 5. All I want in return is Ezekiel Elliott. I love it.
No big deal.
I love it. So let's talk about Big Ben if we can, Chappie.
Yes, sir.
The Steelers, week 1 at New England, they never play well at New England. Never, ever, and probably never will for the foreseeable future. They go into New England week 1 on Sunday Night Football, and they just look absolutely out of sync. And so we expect week 2 different things from the Steelers. I really did. And then in week 2, early on in the game, they lose their heart and soul, Ben Roethlisberger. So fantasy perspective-wise, first, Chappie, let's talk about, and I want to hear your perspective on Big Ben and the Steelers trading now for a first-round draft pick to the Dolphins for a defensive back. What does that say about their view of their quarterback situation in Pittsburgh and Roethlisberger?
Oh, I'm about to throw you an ephus ball here.
I'm ready.
Marty. So, obviously, I've run the whole gamut here over the last 48 hours, right? Being a Steelers fan. Ben Roethlisberger has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for the last 15 years. His legacy will be one that will get overshadowed by Tom Brady, in all honesty. He's been a great quarterback. He certainly is a Hall of Fame quarterback. But I don't think Ben Roethlisberger shoots back up for the Steelers, Arnie. And the reason why I say that, this offense, and it's been this way since this happened last year, is centered around Mason Rudolph. Think about what they did when they drafted him out of the third round last year. They coupled him with teammate James Washington. Okay? So I'm going to stop for a second here, Arn. If you take nothing away from this whole soapbox moment, take this away. James Washington will be the biggest beneficiary of this injury, of this change of the guard. You saw it in the preseason. You see it anytime these two have hooked up. The first person Mason Rudolph looks at is James Washington. Arnie, Washington's a stud. He's a good ball player. He had a hard time building rapport with Roethlisberger. So I'll make the argument, and it's hard to say this is a positive. Juju's going to get his, right? Connor's dinged up. They got Jalen Samuels, who's probably a better receiver out of the backfield. I think he's going to lean heavily on Vance McDonald. And all of a sudden, James Washington becomes viable. Sounds like a well-rounded offense to me. I don't know if they make the playoffs, on, but I think they're better now. And I know that sounds insane because they need that second receiver, right? And that's why, the sole reason why they need that second receiver. And I think that Rudolph gives that to him with his rapport with Washington.
So we're going to look here. Let me say a lot. You just said a lot. So let's sort of pick it apart. Mm-hmm. And we're adding to the chat room, by the way. George is with us. Good evening, George. We're talking Steelers. We're talking the effect and the fallout of Ben Roethlisberger going down for the year. Okay, I first want to agree with you. Has been is done in Pittsburgh.
That's harsh.
Done. That's the first point. Second, how many Super Bowls did the Steelers won, Chappie? I know the number, but tell me, just so you feel good.
6.
Who's won more Super Bowls than the Steelers, Chappie?
No one.
And is there a reason why they've won more than any other team? Is because they have forward-thinking front offices.
Yeah.
And so they know Mason Rudolph is a stud. That's why they didn't trade for a second-string quarterback. They didn't trade for Eli Manning. We're going to talk about that situation in a few. They went out and they improved where? They improved their secondary. Which to your
point, got torched by the Patriots.
So they're improving in two areas in their mind. They're improving maybe not short-term, but maybe short-term offensively because, let's face it, they've stunk it up so far offensively. And secondly, they've improved dramatically in the secondary where they know they are the weakest. And I like what they're doing in Pittsburgh. It's unfortunate that it's at an injury of such a great all-time quarterback as Big Ben. But they've taken a dark cloud and they have formed a silver lining in the Steel City.
Absolutely. And just one more point to that, Arn. What the best part about Minka Fitzpatrick, he's on his rookie contract. So he's not getting paid a boatload of money. that's, they need the salary cap relief. That helps them there as well. So that's why you see them giving up more draft picks, because they have that ability to absorb some of that financial short term for the gain long term with that contract.
I love it. These are the kind of moves that. Oh, let me ask you this: staying on the Steelers, and we know the Ravens have started out fantastic, 2-0, right?
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, Chappell. Are you really a believer in the Ravens? I mean, who have they played? Week 1, who did they play? The Dolphins. The Dolphins. Okay. Has there been a worse team in recent? The Dolphins are as bad as the 76 Bucks.
It's the best minor league football team I know of.
Okay, they're as bad as the 76 Bucks. Remember what John McKay used to say?
Well,
we were absolutely horrible on defense, but we made it up by being just as bad blocking and playing offense.
Yeah.
The Dolphins look like a bunch of clowns. Did you see the pass thrown to the running back? Is it Balaj? And he just ducks out of the way? I'm not kidding. He just ducks out of the way. I mean, so they beat that group of South Floridians week 1. Who did they play yesterday? Who did they play Sunday?
The Cardinals.
Okay. Are you thinking the Cardinals are going to be a playoff team this year? Let's go through it. NFC, you get 6 spots. You get 6 spots.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's in their division? They're in the West. The Rams. I think the Rams win the division. There's one team in the playoffs. Dallas. Feel pretty good about the Cowboys?
I mean, no, but yeah, they're going to make the playoffs.
Eagles. I'm comparing them to the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Eagles.
Yeah, well.
The Bears. The Packers. I can go on.
Yeah.
There are at least 6. Vikings.
The Vikings out.
Yeah. Let's don't leave them out. They're easily 6. Clearly better than Arizona. My point being, who have the Ravens played? They're 2-0. They got to win these games. I got it. You got to win against these poor sisters of America. And they have, but they haven't beaten New England. They haven't They haven't played the Steelers yet.
Right.
They haven't played the Chiefs, who manhandled my Raiders, and the Raiders aren't that bad this year. The Chiefs are just that good.
Yeah, they're scary.
So, Pittsburgh, what I'm getting at, in a long, around, drawn-out way, Pittsburgh can still win that division.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're just being honest about it, it's all going to boil down to those division games, right? I think you kind of painted that picture. It's going to come down to Pittsburgh first. I think Baltimore's a good team, Arnie.
I think they're good. I think they're good. I don't think they're great.
I think that's going to be, them and the Steelers and them and the Browns and the Steelers and the Browns. That's going to be a really good head-to-head matchup with all 3 of those teams, right? But I don't think those are unwinnable games. And I think that's the point you're trying to make here, right?
Exactly. I'm saying don't RIP the 6-time Super Bowl champs after an 0-2 start, because they've got 14 games to go, and if the chemistry's right, they're going to be really good.
Here's the thing. Here's the takeaway from all this, okay? And I haven't said this on air yet. Devin Bush is one hell of a player. They haven't had a middle linebacker like Devin Bush since Ryan Shazier. And that's saying something, because Ryan Shazier was probably the most underrated football player when his injury happened in the NFL. Dude could cover linebackers. He runs 4.3. Devin Bush has that type of talent. It's a different skill set, but he makes the rest of that defense fall into place.
And when you add a Fitzpatrick to that team,
absolutely.
And you know how it is, Chappie. It's football even more so than any other sport. I've played them all. And you get a new talent. Everybody's invigorated. Everybody.
Well, what it does, and I don't want to make this about the Steelers show, but obviously I got a little bit of knowledge on it, right? The thing it does, the big thing it does, Terrell Edmonds is a linebacker playing safety. The thing it does, it allows Terrell Edmonds to play more in his position than what he's had to. He's had to get back into that safety spot and cover something, right? So he is now going to be able to not like Short Palomalu, but serve that same purpose as an effector at the line. Because they could put Fitzpatrick back there to kind of man everything. See what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, and it's just you look at the team and you think, oh no, and you really dive deep and you say, oh yes.
Well, yeah, and this is something they did it a couple years with Joe Hayden, and it worked out. So why wouldn't you think this would work out, right?
That's right. Now, this coming week, for example, and you know the schedule, where do the Ravens play at this week? You know? Kansas City. Kansas City.
That would be one heck of a game.
CBS game, 1 o'clock Sunday. Meanwhile, the Steelers take on the undefeated 49ers. You got to love that one. And so, realistically, after this week, couldn't the Steelers just be one game behind the Ravens?
I'm going to challenge. I wish we had a challenge flag.
I'm ready.
And I'm pausing to pull this up. Do you know that Mike Tomlin struggles on the West Coast?
A lot of East Coast teams do.
Yeah. I mean, it's notoriously bad. Well, you know as a Raiders fan.
I know when we go east, it's struggle city.
Yeah, but I'm saying we haven't beaten the Raiders in Oakland, I don't think, since Tomlin's been the head coach.
It's funny, isn't it? As bad as the Raiders have been and as good as the Steelers have been, they play regular season games, it seems like, every other year. And I can't remember the last time Pittsburgh beat Oakland.
Yeah. So anytime they go out west, it is a concern. So I'm not so quick to chalk that up as a win.
Well, if they can pull that one off, though, the following week, week 4, they're playing at home against Cincinnati. Now, you got to love that one. So,
absolutely.
If they can win this game against the 49ers, I'm just saying, it puts them in a position that weeks 1 and 2 don't really matter that much. And in week 4, the Browns and Ravens square off. So, you're going to have a lot of parity in that division. That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I think that they very well could win this weekend. I think that anytime you have a loss such as Ben Roethlisberger, I think it tends to bring your players together. You tend to get an elevated status out of your other established players on that team. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if they stepped up and answered the bell. That trip out west concerns me.
So it'll give us something to talk about next Tuesday night, is what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some other fantasy players, some risers maybe that you think Chaplin may be big players. You know, I'm going to talk about the obvious. We'll sort of go back and forth here. I want to talk about for just a moment Kansas City wide receivers, because I love to be part of the Kansas City Chiefs nation when it comes to wide receivers. Anybody that can catch passes from Pat Mahomes, give me some of that action. Last week, you had two to think about. You had Mecole Hardman, who caught a touchdown, looked really good. You also had, at the other wide receiver position, Robinson, who Demarcus Robinson just went off. I mean, 6 of 6 targets, 172, 2 touchdowns. So if you're playing fantasy football, and we are, and you're looking to add a wide receiver, and you're looking at either a Demarcus Robinson or Mecole Hardman, are they 1 and 1A? Is there a clear distinction between the two? And, of course, before long, number 10's coming back, Tyreek Hill. And
Right.
so this may be more of a short-term than a long-term situation. But do you like either or both of those, Chappell? Tell me about it.
I'll tell you, in all honesty, it really just comes down to what your team makeup looks like. I don't think one is better than the other. I think if you need a higher floor, you go with Robinson. I think if you're, like, for instance, in my league, I have Tyreek Hill. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get Hardman. He was already drafted. But in that situation, if you're missing a splash player, someone like that, someone who's going to either, that you're okay with getting a 6 or 7 points, or even a 2 or 3 points, but there'll be weeks when he gets you 30, then you go Hardman. It just depends on what you're looking at, right?
Right.
If you're sitting there with Chris Godwin and Tyler Lockett, I'd say Hardman. If you're looking at, Mike Evans and, say, James Washington, I'm probably looking Robinson.
Sounds great. So, your turn. Tell me some fantasy nugget. Tell me a player I need to be looking for in fantasy, Chaplain. I'm hurting in another league. I got to have some points. So tell me something. I'm waiting. I'm dying. Let me hear it.
So, where to go with this? I'll tell you, as I look down through here this week, and this is, obviously, as you said, I was out with Lenny last night, so my preparation isn't up to its normal. But I will say with emphasis, and I'm going to back this up in a minute, if Cody Latimer plays, I love Cody Latimer this week. Because I love Daniel Jones. Look, here's the thing, Arn. First off, let's talk short-sighted. He's playing the effing Buccaneers.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you on that one. So far, we're talking the same language.
Yeah, so he's set up with a good matchup, right? I really do believe that what we saw in the preseason out of Daniel Jones is legitimate. I believe that this kid basically elevated a mediocre Duke team last year to a contender, right? And you saw you're an ACC guy.
Yeah. I mean, I watched him play a lot.
How's Duke doing this year?
Not too well.
Right. So, add to that an Evan Ingram. Add to that a Saquon Barkley. Add to that Cody Latimer. Sterling Shepard would be there. He will be there. But this week, you're talking about a guy who's 6'2" and runs a 4.40. He's shown glimpses of potential. I think he's a steal.
What about
the last week you can get him?
What about the concussion and the calf? What do you think about that?
We'll see. I mean, that's something you have to keep an eye on. But the thing about the calf, the concussion concerns me more than the calf because you have to pass protocol, right?
Right.
They want him to play because there's not much there aside from him. He's really their only talented receiver, right?
Well, you're right, and the thing is, the chemistry that he will build with Daniel Jones,
right.
Eli had his pick, whoever it was. Maybe it was Evan. Maybe it was his tight end Ingram, for example.
Right.
But here comes, Daniel Jones with the new set of thoughts, a new set of ideas, and Cody Latimer, clearly the most talented, probably their best receiver, is suspended for 2 more games. But Latimer may be the best even when the suspension is over. So my only concern with Latimer is the injury. And by him going out in the game early last week, he was their number one. I mean, not only was their number one guy, Shepard was out too. So he was their number 2 guy. He was the only wide receiving target they had.
No,
that was any good.
But no. Let's talk about this, right? I mean, you have one of the best receiving running backs in the game, right?
Right.
And can you honestly give me a good argument as to why Evan Ingram won't be a top 3 tight end?
He's got to be.
Into next year?
No, he's got to be.
Yeah.
He's got to be.
So, I mean, I can make the argument he's top 2, right? So, if you're talking that status, that tier of tight end, you're talking about a lot of targets, right? You're talking about 140, 150 balls.
Yeah, 10 a game. Yeah, he could get 8 to 10 targets every game.
So if you're looking at that much volume, you're looking at a George Kittle type production from last year. You're looking at 1,300 yards. He's a red zone threat. Dude could score double-digit touchdowns this year. So, yes, you're right. They've only got one receiver right now. But they've got, if not the best pass-catching tight end, one of the top handful. And a top 2 or 3, running back. A top 2 or 3 tight end, right?
Right.
The cupboard isn't bare, is my point.
My only problem with the Giants, and offensively, but first of all, well, wait a minute. I got a lot of problems with the Giants. Let me change that. First of all, their offensive line is not good.
Yep.
So I'm really concerned about Barkley and his health over the course of a 16-game season. I'm not doubting his talent. I think talent-wise, he may be the most talented running back in the NFL. Maybe. There's an argument to make. But with that poor offensive line, he's going to get worn down. All right, and so take away some running game, and now everybody's focusing on the receiving core. And I just think I'm playing devil's advocate with you. But if Daniel Jones gets a lot of pressure, how's the rookie going to respond? Now, I will say this. You know David Cutcliffe, the head coach at Duke. You know who his best bud is for years and years and years. You know who used to show up in Durham and practice just for fun? Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
And so it's not like Daniel Jones. You know he's been around one of the greatest of the all-time greats. So he's had that kind of introduction. Cody Latimer. Here's how I break it down, Chappie. I see Ingram getting 8 to 10 targets a game. I see Barkley getting 8 to 10. Now that's a maximum of 20 targets. He's going to throw 45 times a game.
Right, because they're down, right?
They're down. And so where do the other 25 go? And Cody Latimer is going to get a bunch of those.
Right. I made the argument. It's a great point. I made the argument in the preseason. Odell Beckham had 124 targets last season. Where are those 124 targets going to go? And now that Sterling Shepard is hurt, that even further dissolves where those targets go, right?
Right.
Because a big chunk of those were going to go to him. So you bringing in guys into the equation that maybe weren't going to be your 1s or 2s. They were going to be your 3s or 4s that have to get some targets. Latimer's the guy. So, and I'll tell you, I really do look for big things out of Daniel Jones in that. Again, not to beat the dead horse. It's not like his offensive line was great last year at Duke. He's going to be used to having to hurry up and get rid of the ball, right? So I just think it's a perfect situation for him.
So
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I just get a good feel about him.
So I'm going to give you 5 wide receivers. Get your pen. Get your paper. Chat room. If anybody's with us, be listening. This is why I love having Phil Chaplin with me, because I can actually ask questions and I don't have to be the one who answers them. I'm going to give you 5 wide receivers. I want you, after I give them to you, make this assumption: you're in a half-point PPR league.
Okay.
And you're going to rank these 5 receivers from number 1, I want the most, to number 5, I want the least.
Okay.
All right, so we've just talked about Cody Latimer. He's on your list. Mike Williams for the Chargers. Deebo Samuel for the 49ers.
Love it.
Oh, you love it, don't you? Terry McLaurin for the Redskins. And Miko Hardman for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're your 5 wide receivers. I want you to rank them. Let's do them one more time. Latimer, Williams, Samuel, McLaurin, and Hardman.
Mike Williams is one, and I think that's clear. The other four I'll ponder on, but I think that Mike Williams is clearly.
Well, I gave you that one to sort of just give you something to get going. I thought since I threw it on you, you had no idea it was coming your way. Let me at least give you my ace in the hole. I agree with you. I think Mike Williams is going to be an extremely good talent, especially now with their tight end out.
Yeah.
Is he ever going to play? Hunter Henry. I mean, has he not had some bad luck? I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad. But as an owner of Mike Williams, pretty much everywhere, I don't feel that bad.
No, I have him in. I told you about my 14-team league where it's no meat on the bones. Well, I've got Mike Williams. I've got almost all those players I just called out to you.
Yeah.
But I've got Mike Williams. He's in my starting lineup. I don't have Latimer on this team, but I could get him.
Yeah.
It all depends how you rank them for me.
It's really interesting. The guy, in all honesty, if you're talking about from a perspective of having to be viable, right? So having to not maybe start him every week as a flex opportunist, right? So someone who's in consideration to play. Now, if you're talking about, because that makes a difference, right? So if you're putting someone at the end of the bench who you're not really going to have to play, it would change how you look at this, right? So I'm taking it from the perspective of you're wanting to know this person's going to play. Right? Maybe not every week, but a lot of weeks.
I'm going to need to fill in. You're going to be bye weeks. Right. I'm going to have Tampa Bay. I'm playing them. I want to take advantage of a porous defense. And I want to be able to play these guys if those situations arise. So I guess what I'm saying is we know Williams is going to play and get targets.
Right.
Of these other four, best upside going forward if I have to slot someone in a given week.
I'll tell you, and this is just my opinion, I think the next guy that stands out here went to the same college in Deebo Samuel.
Clemson.
I love Deebo Samuel because of the offense he's in. People forget that is basically Atlanta's offense from when they went to the Super Bowl. And it's Jimmy Garoppolo running it. There's a lot. San Francisco is probably one of the most slept upon offenses. Now, the running game has problems, right? Their passing game, there's room for improvement. They're young. They're ascending. But I love what Gruden's going to do there. I love the fact that he has Garoppolo, and I love Deebo Samuel.
He was 5 of 7 on target Sunday, 87 yards and a touch. They beat the Bengals. I know it was the Bengals. But here's the key, I think, to Samuel. At the preseason, who was the big talk? It was Dante Pettis.
Right.
And clearly, through 2 games, Deebo Samuel has unseated Dante Pettis. And in fact, did Pettis even catch a pass last week? I don't think so. Maybe he caught one. He didn't play hardly at all.
I think he's dinged up still. Yeah. I don't think I think Pettis becomes more of a factor the later in the season you get, the healthier he gets. But at that point, Arnie, I don't think it matters because I think Deebo Samuel is going to be your number one receiver there by that point.
I think he is now.
I do too. So that's just where my mindset is with this. So when I look at these guys, obviously Mike Williams jumps out. But then I think Samuel, just because of his role in the offense and his physical abilities, is the second person on it.
I love it. So we got 3 left. We got Latimer, Hardman, and McLaurin.
And this is where it gets really hard.
It's tough. If it was easy, anybody could do it. Look, if it was easy, we wouldn't be podcasters. Somebody else would be, right?
Yeah. I think, and just being honest, I got to go McCole Hardman next. And just from the perspective of getting a share of that offense, right? Even if when Hill comes back, he turns into an afterthought, you're getting a month's worth of at least a portion of Hill's role being filled by McCole Hardman. That could get you 4 or 5 touchdowns. And that's the floor, right?
Right.
Tyreek Hill, and maybe he scores 7 or 8 touchdowns. And then we're talking about a whole different monster when Hill comes back. Because then they turn into you're talking about 90s St. Louis Rams style offense at that point. Right?
It's scary to think of it, and when you can line up the Hardman and Tyreek Hill, and
to go with Watkins
and Sammy Watkins has been all pro so far through the first 2 games, and Kelsey, and they add the running back from Buffalo, who's a great pass catcher. I mean, LaShawn McCoy is probably going to be the number 1 guy this week. It'll be interesting to see how he plays against the Ravens.
He's dinged up, Arn. He's
dinged
up. He got cleared, but he is. Both of those Kansas City running backs are dinged up.
Which means more passes, and more opportunity for Hardman, right?
Yep, absolutely. So, just because they're such a prolific offense, that's why I put him third. I do think he and Latimer are really close, comparatively speaking. Latimer has a skill set that fits what the Giants want to do. He's a good high ball catcher. He's fast. He's tall. I really do think that him at 4, and I like McLaurin. Don't get me wrong, Art. Especially, I like the fact that when Haskins gets in there, they're former teammates. So again, it's a similar type of situation with Rudolph from Washington. Those guys have that automatic built-in rapport, right? So I think it's really smart for these teams to do that.
The only number 1, well, I guess you could argue Williams is not a number 1 in San Diego, but he's really good. But you've got Samuel and Latimer and McLaurin, who right now are all number 1 options on their respective teams.
Right.
Wow. And how many of these guys got drafted in 10-team leagues?
None of them. Mike
Williams, yeah. Samuel, I would argue the other 4 probably did not get drafted in 10-team leagues.
Hardman maybe in a couple just because of the name.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right.
But Washington, when they go long, they're going to go to McLaurin, and they're going. Here's the thing: Washington, the Giants, the 49ers, they're going to be what? Behind.
Average. Yeah.
Behind. They're going to throw some more, and somebody's got to be the recipient of those targets, and that's why sometimes it's better to have good wide receivers on bad teams.
Right.
And that's where fantasy differs from reality.
It's all about opportunity, right?
Well, that's my number 1 phrase.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back to you. I'm monopolizing way too much here, Phil Chaplin, and I know you got a lot of stuff you want to talk about. We've talked about Cody Latimer, and I just sort of ran with it. So instead of me picking another one, I got a few written down here. Give me another one. Give me another somebody we need to look at.
Can I pivot?
Pivot.
No, I'm not going to pivot. This is in line with what we're talking about.
All right.
Okay, so I got 2 things here. I got the best player that no one knows about. We'll talk about that later. But just to pivot off of that, which 2 of these running backs are the best running back that no one knows about yet? Miles Sanders or Justice Hill?
It's funny you mentioned Justice Hill because in this 14-team league I'm in, he got cut today, and he's a free agent.
Yeah.
And my question to you is, on that Ravens team, is he worth me dropping one of my wide receivers, and I just gave you every one I think I had, or dropping one of my 3 quarterbacks, and then we know what dropping a quarterback can do to you, and picking him up. Now, Miles Sanders, can we dig on him a little bit first?
Yeah.
I love Miles Sanders. I just think you've given me 1 and 1A.
Yeah.
And I like Justice Hill a little better. I just don't know about the opportunity in Baltimore, barring an injury. But I like it. I just like Justice Hill a little bit better. Like I'd say he's an 8.8, and Miles Sanders is an 8.7.
Yeah.
That's just me.
And that's the thing. You can get these 2 guys in a lot of leagues, right? especially this time of year. Because here we are, we've had 2 games. They haven't done much. People are getting a little bit antsy. They want to go pick up that nice, shiny new toy. But I'll say this. If you look at both of these guys' situations, I'll start with Sanders. So you're looking at the Philadelphia backfield. You're talking about beating out of Jordan Howard, who basically got shuffled off from Chicago because he couldn't beat out Tariq Cohen, right? You're talking about 172-year-old Darren Sproles. And who else? I'm missing somebody. I know I'm missing. Corey Clement, right? Who's been given the job time and time again, only to fail.
I was just checking on your age there. He's actually only 167. Born during the Garfield administration.
But in all seriousness, I remember watching, half seriousness, right? I remember watching Darren Sproles in a Kansas State uniform back in the 80s.
I know. He was my college roommate. Don't you remember?
So, no, in all seriousness, so that's what Miles Sanders is up against. You look at this kid, I think he's pretty close to a 3-down back. I don't know what your thoughts are on it. So he got 11 rushes the first game for 25 yards, 10 rushes the second game for 28 yards. Nothing phenomenal, right?
Right.
But who is this competition? And has he really had a chance to get comfortable in that offense?
The competition, again, you're talking about geriatric patients. You're talking about players who are injury prone, not maybe season-ending injuries, but Sproles is always nicked up. Clement's always nicked up. I mean, come on. And face it, they're going to get hurt. I mean,
Jordan Howard's always nicked up, Barney.
I mean, Jordan Howard sucks. I don't like him. I wasn't even going to put Jordan Howard in he gets hurt category. I was going to put Jordan Howard in he sucks category. So, at what point do I tell you what it's going to take. Here's what it's going to take. You're going to play. Let's make this fan neutral. Let's say they're playing the Giants, not the Cowboys. Let's say they're playing the Giants or the Redskins.
Right.
And they come out and they lay an egg running the football with the trio of players we just talked about: Howard, Clement, and the 167-year-old.
Right.
Do you not have to say enough is enough if that situation occurs? And I think it will.
Right.
And they say, okay, rookie, go in there and run like the wind.
If you're going to stink, do it with the kid, right?
Exactly. You know, Seattle had that situation last year, but the difference was they didn't stink.
Right.
And
they got better.
Penny never got the chance because the players they had were killing it.
Yeah.
Well, if the Eagles were killing it, we wouldn't be having a discussion about Miles Sanders.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. So here's the point to all this, and I think you'll echo this sentiment. Don't wait until next week when he's gone off for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. Do it this week before he's done it. Because you won't have to spend, if you're in a fad league, you won't have to spend 50% of your budget. You won't have to use you can go pick him up now. Waivers just cleared in my league. You can go pick him up for free if you want. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know.
So do it a week ahead of time. Put his ass in the lineup and get those points. Because it's coming. And don't even get me started on Justice Hill.
Well, I got to because I told you he was my favorite. But let me back up 1 minute before we move to Justice Hill. I just made a trade offer in my 14-team league. I offered McLaurin, and I would get Miles Sanders.
Yeah. All day long.
Because McLaurin's hot right now, and what do we do in fantasy? We sell how? We sell high. This show is better than anything you'll get on ESPN, folks. I'm telling you.
Serious, any of that crap.
I mean, come on. I hope Lenny will listen to this show, he and Andrea, and I hope they'll say, dang, those guys, they must have practiced. The fact of the matter is, Chappie and I talked at 10 minutes till 7. I was driving in my car. Chappie's just getting in from work. We are just doing it, right? Doing it. Okay, so let's move on to Justice Hill. Can we, shall we?
Yeah.
Because he was my 8.7 and Sanders was my 8.6.
Right.
And there's a reason why we love Justice Hill. And it can be a similar argument, can it?
Well, I mean, so you know me. I'm a West Virginia native.
A Mountie from day one, yes.
Anything that has to do with Big 12 sports, I've got an inside track on, right? Justice Hill, the Oklahoma State, I don't know if he graduated or not, the Oklahoma State alumni, is really set up in a great situation in Baltimore. Mark Ingram's already dinged up, Arn. He's already nursed, I think it's a shoulder.
Yeah.
You're 2 weeks in. The dude's never been able to stay healthy the whole year. He's always been in a timeshare, right? Now, granted, they're going to run a lot with Lamar. I get that. I'm here to tell you, Gus Edwards stinks. I'm here to tell you, Kenneth Dixon stinks. And I'm here to tell you, Justice Hill can be a goal line back. Justice Hill can catch the ball out of the backfield. He is your prototypical Dalvin Cook type runner. He does really well with the one cut. I don't think he's as fast as Dalvin Cook is. But I think you could see some comparable output out of him. This guy's capable of being a lead back as soon as this week.
You think week 3 he may be?
If Mark Ingram's dinged up, absolutely. And he is dinged up.
I guess we'll hear more about that probably, by Thursday?
Yeah. And in all honesty, I mean, I don't know how much you'll hear it. What I like to do is in situations like this, I'll go on Twitter and I'll have a Baltimore beat writer that I follow, and I'll see what they're saying. Hell, I might even reach out to them and say, what are you seeing from Justice Hill? And, because those are the guys that are the most in tune with those players. You're not going to get, you might get someone from ESPN who goes there for a day, but these guys live it every day, right? So that's, and in all honesty, if we're talking about a bench spot, we're talking about a running back, why wouldn't you take a chance in an offense like Baltimore's? I think the last 6, when Lamar Jackson took over last year, and I'm doing this, I think they averaged 7-something a rush from the time he took over last year. Mm-hmm. They're going to lean on a lot of teams this year. So with or without Ingram, there's still a significant role for this young man in this team.
So here's a good question. Let's just make an assumption. I'm going to add some reality and fantasy to the assumption I'm making. Let's say you're in a league where Miles Sanders and Justice Hill are both available.
Right.
And you're carrying in a 1 QB league. 1 QB league. You're carrying 3 QBs.
I wouldn't do that.
And that's where I'm going. Wouldn't you cut a QB and pick up one of these running backs?
Yes. I would cut 2 QBs and pick up both of those running backs, Arnie.
Well, in the league I'm in, again, I tell you, there's no meat on the bone, 14 teams. I have 2 quarterbacks on my roster. You'll like this. I got the oldest quarterback in the NFL, and I got the youngest quarterback in the NFL. That's the truth. I've got Mr. Brady, and I've got Senior Murray from Arizona.
Yep.
And they both are doing really well to start the year.
Right.
So those are my two quarterbacks. I'm living and dying with two.
No, it's hard to, you can't cut either.
But I did earlier draft Kirky, and you know I don't like Kirky.
Gone.
He was gone week 2, baby. I mean, he's already been gone. But I wanted to see how Murray would play, so I cut Kirky and I added Adrian Peterson.
Right.
I'm not real big on cutting Peterson, but gosh, he starts and they play Dallas, and then the second start he's playing the Bears. I mean, how long?
The offensive line is just so bad without Trent Williams.
It is so bad. So I got to keep Peterson, right? I mean, opportunity. And so I could add a Sanders or a Hill, and then I'm dropping a wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, if both of those guys are out there, you have to get both of them because it's a gauntlet running down through the season, right? So you have to. They're gonna get an opportunity. It could be this week. It might not be for another month. But I firmly believe that the players we're talking about that are competing with these guys can't stay healthy, are not able to.
And when they go down, these two guys are going to be the stars and the studs. And
yeah, they're going to run away with the show.
You get them now.
Yeah.
Here's one for you. Here's one for you, Chappie. And you know, you're in a league together. You know, neither one of us, I don't think, own this player. But let's talk about trade value for one particular player, Antonio Brown. Now, I don't want to talk about the legal issues. I've heard enough of that for a lifetime. I want to talk about if you are an Antonio Brown owner, trade value, and you could talk wide receiver, you could talk trading for a running back. But let's try to delve deep into just a moment as we just off the cuff do it here. Who and what type of player would be a fair trade for an Antonio Brown? He came out Sunday looking like Antonio Brown.
Of course he did. Did you expect anything else?
I didn't. If he plays, he's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Well, so my argument to you, Arnie, why in the frick would you trade Antonio?
That's my point. Thank you. You keep him. You pick up a McLaurin. You pick up a Samuel. You pick up a Hardman. You have them in reserve if nothing else. These guys can play. And you play Antonio Brown until the wheels fall off.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, so I think the one place in this world where Antonio Brown can be himself is on the football field. I think that he knows how close he is to jeopardizing being able to do that. I know there's these new allegations coming out. But you know, being a judge, how that works. Due process.
You're not guilty till proven.
So that's going to have to work its way through courts. And again, you know just how slow the courts can be. Especially with people who have money and are able to delay and ponder, right?
That's right.
So what makes you think they're going to come to any sort of resolve in the next 14 weeks?
Oh, they're not. Plus, it's not even a criminal charge.
Right.
It's a civil domestic type thing.
So the odds of him getting any sort of ramifications from these charges this year, I think are pretty minimal. Would you agree with me?
Look, and here's the thing with civil suits. I do agree with you. Let me answer your question. Civil suits, first of all, nothing has been filed yet.
Right.
Okay? Nothing has been filed, and in most states, you have at least 30 days after being served with civil process before you have to do anything. I don't mean go to court. I mean do anything.
File paperwork.
And in most states, you can get an extension for 30 more days. Okay, so let's just use that 60-day block. That's 8 weeks.
Right.
We're into week 10 of the NFL season. And for fantasy purposes, last I checked, there's only 17 weeks at best, and that includes the playoffs.
Right.
So I think if you trade Antonio Brown, my point being, there isn't equivalent value for Antonio Brown.
Not that you're getting, that's for sure.
Unless Tyreek Hill And chances are a Tyreek Hill owner is not going to trade him for Antonio Brown.
Right.
Why would you? You've already got Antonio Brown if you've got Tyreek Hill.
Right.
So you're not going to get equivalent value. Most Ezekiel Elliott owners aren't trading for Antonio. In other words, you're not going to give up the number 1A stud for another number 1A stud. You've already got one.
Right.
And you're not going to want to get a second-round pick.
Well,
I mean, Julio Jones, for example, a great player, correct?
right.
But he's not Antonio Brown.
No.
So I don't make a trade. I go out, and that's why we're talking about these wide receivers tonight. You go out and you pick up a Deebo Samuel, who is a great talent, and if Antonio Brown goes down, you put Deebo Samuel in the lineup.
I feel like I haven't said this name enough, Arnie. James Washington. I just feel like I haven't said it enough.
Steeler great James Washington.
I just haven't said it enough tonight.
Well, let's put him. Okay, so let's take him. I'll let you have the floor. We ranked 5 a while ago. You ranked them: Williams, Samuel, Hardman, Latimer, McLaurin. So now I'll let you. I love it how we set each other up. So now put James Washington in that mix.
No, I love this. And also, this is all off the cuff, guys. We didn't prepare any of this crap. So, again, Williams won. I like Samuel a little bit more, but I put Washington at number 3. I put Washington above Samuel or Harbin.
I agree with you.
So, and the reason why I say that, again, I said it earlier, we have some different players in here now. Hi, Lenny. Hi, Andrea, by the way.
It's always good to see. Hey, Legend, you and Mrs. Legend, here's the deal. This show we're doing tonight, to me, is like the funnest thing I've done all day. No doubt about it. I mean, I did wake up this morning. That was pretty fun. But you didn't ask me who with. You just, anyway. But, it's been a great day. It really has been. My mom got a really good report from the doctor, and so we just keep rolling. But this is fun, right? Right, Chappie? I mean, this is the most fun you can have.
Yeah, it's a blast. And the cool thing about this is we can just kind of sit here and work some things out, right? Because when you're talking on Tuesdays, the football flow is kind of weird. There's not a whole lot of news yet, right? So we can just kind of sit here and hypothesize where things are going for the rest of the week. In 2 days, we're going to play football again.
Here's the thing. Yeah, it's great, and we're not just dreaming this stuff up. We're talking real stuff in fantasy.
Right.
Here's the thing. I want to go back to your James Washington, and I'm going to compare him to Hardman, contrast him to Hardman, if I may. I can see this happening. If you can imagine one train going up a hill and the other train going down a hill, at not a great slope, but what I mean by that is Washington. He's not where he wants to be yet, but he's climbing to get there.
Yep.
Hardman, his opportunity is now. He's got to produce while Tyreek Hill is out. He could slip once Hill comes back. I like the potential long-term this season of a James Washington more than I do a Hardman or a Latimer. I just do.
His place in the offense is more cemented. I think that's the best way to put it, right? I'm sorry. Give me a second here. I'm looking up.
Well, I'll take it away from you until you look it up.
Yeah.
Let me know. Here's another thing with Latimer. We know Golden Tate. I mentioned it. I didn't mention his name. Okay,
Yeah.
Golden Tate is going to get a lot of targets once he gets off his suspension.
Yep.
I drafted him in my 10-team league with you. He's sitting there on my bench, just begging to take Jamison Crowder's place in my regular lineup, if A.J. Green doesn't first. But Golden Tate's going to get a lot of targets in New York once he is activated.
Yes.
Latimer's going to lose some opportunity. That's where I'm at. Hardman's going to lose some opportunity. Latimer's going to lose some opportunity. But I can see James Washington's opportunities increasing the more games he plays and the more connections he makes with Mason Rudolph.
I agree. So can I give you his 4-year stats.
I'm ready. This is what I was waiting on. Now that you got them, see, I filled in the void. You're ready to roll. That's what we do for our wingman, right? That's what we do.
So first let me start by saying, played all 4 years at Oklahoma State, right? I don't have this in front of me, but his senior year, we'll start with that. Senior year, receiving balls from his teammate Mason Rudolph, also known as the Steelers' new starting quarterback. 74 receptions, 1,549 yards, 13 touchdowns.
Mm.
Do you think they have something going on there together?
They're living. They're in love, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Let's talk about his 4-year career at Oklahoma State. 4,472 yards, 39 touchdowns. That's
Wow.
10 a year, Arm.
Wow. 39 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Senior year.
13 touchdowns, 1,500 yards.
Love it.
74 receptions.
Wow.
71 receptions his junior year. 145 receptions his junior and senior year.
That's
Guys, this isn't pros. We're talking about this is 13 games.
incredible.
It is incredible.
And I'm looking at my 14-team league where players just, they're not on the waiver wire, okay? They're just not. And I'm looking at the waiver wire tonight, and I'm seeing some of these guys we're talking about on our waiver wire.
Yeah. And I think this is one guy. If people who aren't perceptive in their leagues, they could drop Washington. Because he hasn't done it. He hasn't done it yet this year. They're not thinking that they are college teammates. They're not thinking that there's this great rapport. So Washington might be out there in your league. If he is, you have to pick him up. If you believe nothing I've said over the past year plus now, James Washington is getting ready to break out over this next month of this football season.
Well, we saw Dante Moncrief, and that's, I'll just say it kindly, Chaplain, that is a bad look.
He's awful.
Okay, well, you said it more accurately. I said it more kindly, but it's a bad look that's awful.
So
I just saw
I'm going to show my cards, Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network. I'm going to show my cards here the night before friggin' waivers clears. So here we are.
You don't have to.
No.
Hold on.
I want to talk about this.
Before you jump, remember I said hold on.
Yep.
Go ahead.
It's important to understand this, right? And it's important to understand when you're listening to these things, the perspective of the person who's giving it. I'm a Steeler fan. It's not a secret, okay? The reason they signed Dante Moncrief from the offseason was because they felt that Deontay Johnson was not ready yet for a full-time role. They drafted Deontay Johnson with the pick that the Raiders gave them for Antonio Brown. The Steelers have a vision for what Deontay Johnson's going to be. And if you look and you see what that kid has done, albeit in very limited sample sizes, he has shown a penchant for making big plays, just like Antonio Brown did when he was a 6th-round draft pick out of Western Michigan. Or is it Central Michigan? I get him confused. Nonetheless, they did on purpose. They went out and drafted that kid with that Brown pick. That kid's going to be a star. Not good, not mediocre, a star. You might not see it till week 9 or 10 of this year because he's very raw. But they signed Moncrief as a get-me-through until this kid was ready. Who could tell you that other than a Steeler fan, Arnie?
Well, I'm in awe just listening. because I know you know when it comes to the Cubs in baseball or the Steelers in football, I'm a Chaplin truther. Okay, a Chaplin truther. Can we pause just a minute? We've only got about 15 minutes left, Chaplin. You asked me if we could go an hour and a half. Chaplin, we could go all night talking this stuff. I mean,
It's fun because it's not scripted. You don't have to sit there and game plan it. You just talk about what you know.
That's why you're talking about a love fest between players. I think we got it going on between podcasters. Here we go. I want to talk two baseball items. One very positive, one very negative. I just saw a flash on the screen. Gleyber Torres just hit his 38th.
Man crush. Love that kid.
And then on a bad note,
Vasquez
in Pittsburgh. You saw that, right?
Yeah. No, I knew you were going.
Yeah.
Just because we talked about him ad nauseum all year, right?
We've talked about him. We talked about why remember, what did we say? Why didn't the Dodgers go get him?
Yeah.
Well, I guess the Dodgers are thinking tonight. Of course, now there are allegations. But these are some, when you start talking about kids and pornography and sex, it ain't good, it ain't good, it ain't good. And
13.
No.
13.
And so here's Vasquez. I hope it's not true. I hope it goes away.
It really doesn't matter if it's true or not, though, right, Arnie?
Here's what I've always said. When you are accused of a crime involving a child, it's almost impossible to shake it. You can be charged. You can be charged with murder.
Right.
And if you're acquitted, people don't talk about you being a murderer.
Right.
But when you're accused of things with a child of a sexual nature, there's a reason why you don't shake it.
Yeah. And it's a shame because, you don't even want to go down the baseball avenue with that, right?
I'm just bringing it up because it's something that you don't want to talk about, but it's significant. But the reality is, it is huge, and it's huge in a lot of ways. Lenny Melnick has said this so many times. There are so many things so much more important than what we talk about on this fantasy network.
Right.
And lives and long-term situations. And I just feel for this young man. I hate he's made this decision. I hope we'll wait till a court of law processes it. But these are some major allegations. Major.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, and it's tough to try and put a positive light on it because it really isn't positive for any party, right?
Did you see what Severino did tonight? I'll switch subjects. Did you see what Severino did tonight?
No, I knew he was close to coming back. What did he do?
4 shutout innings, 4 strikeouts.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. That's the Yankees have their ace back.
And with Big Maple pitching now finally like Big Maple and Severino, and next start, he's going to have 2 more starts before the playoffs.
Yeah.
What do you think next start he goes 5 innings? And what do you think about the final start he goes 6?
Well, I think that's the big part about that is with the Yankees bullpen, he's not afforded to have to go long, right? But in the same regard, you want him to get stretched out. You want him to get as close to, you're talking about a guy last year who, he's just starting to get warmed up at 100 pitches, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking about an old-fashioned horse in its truest sense. So if you can say you get through that first series and you're getting them back up to where you're getting 7, 8 innings out of them, that's a big shot in the arm, and it makes the Yankees really dangerous.
Well, and I look at the Yankees. I'm going to throw a team at you in a moment, but I look at the Yankees and the Astros as the clear favorites in the American League, and I look at, do I really think Minnesota could beat either of them? No. Do I really think Cleveland could beat either of them? No. Do I really think that Tampa could beat either one of them? No. But now there's the Oakland A's.
Yep. I totally agree. With you, and I can't remember what day I was listening to. You were talking about the Luzardo factor and how him and Medea were going to really help them out down the stretch, right? So,
right.
It's looking like the bats are starting to get going. Looks like Chris Davis is starting to maybe wake up a little bit. They could be quite formidable and surprise some teams.
Here's the thing. I don't know. I know you and I both are big followers of Luzardo. I watched him pitch Sunday. Okay? Three things that's significant to me about Sunday's outing. In the 8th inning, he worked himself into his own mess. Bases loaded, no outs.
Right.
Texas only scores 1 run. And he's facing, with 2 outs, full count, he's facing Ruffin Odor. And he releases the ball, and I promise you, Chaplain, it looked like initially it was a fastball headed down the middle of the plate.
Yeah.
And the ball broke, and it broke so far to Odor's left and down. It was a slider down and away.
Okay.
When it finished, it was a foot off the plate. It was on the dirt, and Odor swinging at it.
Yeah, I mean, that's everything aligned with what the scouting report says, right? This guy has 3 plus pitches. His fastball, his breaking, his curveball and a slider, right? He has a curveball as well, right?
Right.
I've not seen him live yet. I mean, I saw him in futures games and stuff like that. I've yet to see the Oakland version of him.
He should be due a start, not a start, but a relief appearance probably tomorrow or Thursday. And I want to keep my eye on that one because he only pitched 3 innings, but he got a save pitching the 3. And then he came on in the 9th, and it was like, good evening, good morning, good night. I mean, it was it was over. But what a talent! So, but here's what I'm thinking about with the Yankees and the Astros, Chaplain, is you've got Verlander, you've got the starting pitching in Houston, which is dominant. You've got Garrett Cole, 300 strikeouts. I think Verlander's sitting on 275. Probably won't get 300, but he'll come really close. So between the two pitchers there, you got 600 strikeouts on the year. They've added Greinke. But with the Yankees having Paxton now finally coming around, it looks like, and with Severino, aren't the Yankees in the discussion with having similar type pitchers as the Astros as the starter staff?
It's just different.
I don't like Greinke. I don't like Greinke in the playoffs. He's never pitched well in the playoffs.
Well, I think, it depends on if you're talking about just the starters, or are you bringing
we bring the bullpen in. The Yankees are clearly better.
Right.
I mean,
that's my point, right?
Betances is back, throwing high 90s, struck out 2 in the 2/3 innings he pitched. You had Betances back. That bullpen is out of sight. And if you have Severino getting him some length, and you have Paxton getting him some length, and Tanaka has always pitched pretty well in the playoffs.
Right.
You're not going to stretch that bullpen so far out. And we haven't even talked about Domingo Germán.
Right. No, I think it's a valid point. And, the thing about the Yankees is they just know how to grind. Whether it's 2-1 or 15-14, they just know how to outperform you just that one little crucial time in the game. And it shows. It shows when they bring in these guys that who the hell is, Mike Tauchman, and they perform, right? So I certainly think there's a bunch of validity to the fact of what the Yankees have done in terms of. I think it's going to come down to this. If you really want to think about it, and I think you're kind of setting this up for me. Whoever gets Oakland in a wild card matchup is in trouble, right?
I don't want best record in the American League.
Right.
What are they fighting for? I mean,
yeah.
Exactly. You read my mind. I don't want to play Oakland.
Right.
I mean, so I guess what they would do is they would throw Mania or Fires. I'm going to bet in the wild card game they throw Fires.
Yeah.
Now they might go Mania, but whoever, they're going to throw the other one in. If they succeed, they're going to go the other one in game 1 of the division series. I just don't want that. And I tell you what, you said it too. These Oakland bats, I tell you, I heard this today. I had to laugh. I got this Phil Chaplin laugh. You want to hear it? It goes something like this.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my Phil Chaplin laugh. Yeah. So I heard this guy on the radio today, and he said he was talking about MVP candidates. He's talking about Altuve and Trout and on, and I'm thinking, nobody ever mentions Marcus Semien. And I had to do this. Ready? Hold on, Chaplin. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody does. And have you looked at his numbers? I know you have.
Yeah.
280 average, 30 some home runs, and over 80 RBIs, and over, I don't know, double digits in steals. He scored 115 stinking runs this year. And nobody ever mentions him. Now, I don't think he's as good as Altuve, but I think his numbers are doggone good. And he plays shortstop every day. And I saw where he had surpassed Ricky Henderson for most leadoff home runs in Oakland A history.
Yeah, Lenny was talking about that this morning.
Yeah, I heard. I think it's 29-28 or something like that. So Lenny said it. I went and checked it out. And daggone, of course, Lenny's always right. But to pass Ricky Henderson in a leadoff batting category for home runs.
Anything. Let's be totally honest. At anything.
At anything. Ricky Henderson? I mean, come on. Who's a better... I mean, the all-time stolen base king. And, Ricky talked about Ricky in the third person, but Ricky was Ricky. Ricky was great.
Yeah. Yeah, he really was. I'll tell you, it's interesting because when you look at Oakland, they've really kind of done it a little bit with smoke and mirrors, right? But really, when you think about it, they're playing some really good ball. And they've got a lot of players who can step it up at any given time. From the Chapman and Olsen bedrock, if you will, to a guy like Semien who's kind of been underrated all year. It's really interesting to see how they've made it work. But they're a formidable foe.
And then we'll close with this one. What's going on in Chicago with the Cubs? Are they going to make it or not, Chaplin?
I think they make it, but I don't think that says a whole lot.
You're talking about limping to the finish line. And literally, you lose. The sad thing with the Cubs is they're not healthy. We know that.
Right.
You lose your best player, Baez. Now you lose arguably maybe your third best player, Rizzo.
Right.
And you got 7 games left with St. Louis.
Well, it's been such a crazy friggin' season. It would not surprise me if they won, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. I'll tell you who I do like is Nico Horner.
I love Nico Horner.
Do you know who Nico Horner reminds me of?
Other than me, I don't know. Who else?
Remember a guy, his nickname was The Riot?
The Riot.
Ryan Theriot?
There you go.
They're the same player.
And the thing was, here's what I love about procrastinators. They come in, they say, "Oh, Nico Horner, he's not going to be fantasy relevant." Bull hockey. He's hitting 385. That's not? He's more fantasy relevant than Gavin Lux.
Yeah.
He's more fantasy relevant the last 2 weeks than Bo Bichette.
Yeah, and it's funny because you just don't know, right? What you can tell is the kid has a good presence at the plate. He's not going to hit you a ton of homers, but he doesn't have to, right? He's not going to steal you a ton of bases, but he's going to put you in position to win. He can steal 15 bases. He can hit 20 homers, but he can score 100 runs, and he can drive in 60 to 70. That's a serviceable major league player.
Well, he's a gamer.
And that's before he develops into what he's, is ceiling, right? I'm talking about next year.
Well, the thing about it, I'm a big Carolina League high A kind of guy.
Right.
And, he's a 2018 first round draft pick.
Yeah.
And so I'm all geared up. He's going to be playing at Myrtle Beach. I'm going to get to go see him in the Carolina League this year.
Wow.
And so I go out, and you probably know this, you know this about me. I'm an autograph baseball hound. And so I get a graded Nico Horner autograph Bowman rookie card, refractor, graded by Beckett at 9.5. I get it for 25 stinking bucks.
Nice.
Okay, so I'm not done. So now I'm ready for the minor league season to start. I've got all my Nico Horner cards. And what do the Cubs do? They start him off at Double-A. Which tells me, okay, I'll just back up. The Cubs have had a couple of other prospects in the past couple of years. Let's start with Lenny's boy, Eloy Jimenez. The hitter he got 28 homers this year in the majors. But Eloy started his minor league career not at Double-A, I can promise you, because I saw him playing at Myrtle Beach. So what I'm saying is the Cubs think more of a drafted college. Now I know Eloy came out of not out of college. I get that he was a lot younger. So I'm comparing apples to oranges. I know that. But what I am saying is for him to start Nico Horner at Double-A and not at the lower levels, South Bend, or he passed all that. You know, the guy that went first in the draft this year for Baltimore, the catcher, his name escapes me. Help me out, Chappie. But
Ali Rutschman.
He starts low A Delmarva for Baltimore. Low A. That's not even Carolina League yet. So what I'm saying is Horner starts out 2 grades ahead of the number 1 draft pick in this year's draft. He's good. He's really good.
Yeah, I think it speaks to his approach, advanced approach to the plate, right? I think he knows, he has an idea what he wants to do when he goes up to the plate. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean hitting the ball in the park. I think that goes a long way.
Wise beyond his years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
So I think in doing that, you can place him in an advantage. Quesadilla is another one. Right?
Right.
You look at what he was able to do quickly coming out of Cal State Fullerton. Well, guess what happened? He performed because he knows what he's doing. He's not trying to kill a ball. He takes it as it comes. It's the same thing you're getting out of Warner. He's not going to hit the power that here has. He's not. But that's okay.
Well, in that Cub lineup, he doesn't have to. I mean, Kyle Schwarber hitting home runs at a great pace this year. Bryant's been hitting. And here's the thing, we'll close off with this. You said it wouldn't surprise you if the Cubs made it without these players. That's exactly what the Brewers have been doing without Yelich.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these things, and I go back, back in the day I pulled for the Dodgers, and I go back to that 88 Dodger team, the last Dodger team to win the World Series. And when they got to the World Series, they were without Fernando Valenzuela. They were without Kirk Gibson, except for that one key at bat. They were without Mike Marshall. Mike Scioscia got hurt. I mean, they put in Mickey Hatcher. Rick Dempsey, at the fading stages of his career, was catching in the World Series. And they beat the vaunted A's 4-1. So for a short period of time, teams can rise up and fill in those gaps. And that's what the Cubbies are going to have to do.
Yeah, I'm skeptical.
Well, they're your team, and so that's what happens. I'm trying to lift you up and end this show on such a great note because it's been such a great show.
It really has. I guess my final thought on that is I think that they've got a great foundation for next year, right? You bring back Castellanos. I think your pitching staff has come a long way this year. You have Kimbrel. I think that this year the timing just isn't really working out for the Cubs. But that said, I still think there's plenty of talent there. You look at what Nick Castellanos has done since coming over from Detroit. He's been a leader of that team. So who's to say he can't step it up just another step?
Hey, I heard today he's got 55 doubles on the year.
Yeah.
5 away from 60. That's unheard of. Wow. I'm looking into. Go ahead, sir.
No, I was just saying he's really been fun to watch in Chicago. That's for sure.
What a trade! What a trade!
Yeah.
Best trade of the season, in my opinion, no doubt about it.
For sure.
George is in the chat room saying, as he said this spring, it was a terrible contract the Red Sox gave Nate Eovaldi. I agree. And he also says that Aristides Aquino just hit his 16th. Well, it's about time because he'd gone like 0 for his last 20.
Yeah, that's interesting to see what happens with him.
I'm not a big believer in Aquino. I'm just not.
You know I was when he first came up.
But the book got written and it got read well. Yep. The thing is with Alvarez, there is no book.
Right.
Because he's beyond the book. It's amazing, isn't it?
I agree.
I tell you what, Chappie, this has been great. I don't know if Andrea is still in the chat room, but I wish tomorrow after. I'm doing the 9 o'clock tomorrow for Lenny, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I'm hoping maybe she could replay this after that show.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I'm going to send her a message. You do the same. Let's see if she'll do that. Because
we'll do.
We had a few people in the chat room. We did, but not like we would have tomorrow morning. And I think this would be a great show to follow a baseball talk tomorrow morning. Hey, buddy, it's always great. Great to have you. Be with me. We'll talk some more next week. How's that sound?
Sounds great, bud.
Everybody have a great night from Chappie. Sign them all, Chappie. It's your turn.
It's my turn. Hey, talk to you again next Tuesday. Thanks for joining in. Chappie and Arnie. Good night.